Imagine a cold Norwegian evening at the edge of the 19th century, where the sky hangs low like a heavy curtain and the wind whispers through narrow streets with the voice of something ancient. Somewhere in that bleak Nordic atmosphere, a young man walks alone, clutching his sketchbook as if it's the only thing anchoring him to the earth. His mind swirls with memories, tragedies, and visions that come at him like ghosts. That young man is Edvard Munch, and he is on the path to creating one of the most haunting images ever burned into human consciousness, the scream. But let's step back to where this story really begins. Edvard Munch was born on December 12, 1863, in the small town of Løten, Norway. His childhood was not the kind that nurtures innocence. It sculpted something far more complex. His mother died when he was just 5 years old. Tuberculosis swept through the family like a curse. A few years later, his sister Sophie, bright, gentle, beloved, also died of tuberculosis at the age of 15. Edvard would later write that the angels of death hovered over his cradle, and in many ways, he wasn't wrong. Sickness, sorrow, and silence shaped him. The grief didn't pass, it settled into him like deep winter frost. His father, Christian Munch, was a strict and deeply religious man, a figure whose presence was heavy and demanding. Christian believed that illness and tragedy were punishments from God, a worldview that only deepened the darkness Edvard felt. In the Munch household, the line between spiritual fear and everyday life was thin razor, and that emotional intensity, that mix of love, terror, guilt, and longing, would later pour into his paintings like raw, unfiltered emotion. By the time Edvard was a young adult, he knew that art was not just a skill for him, it was a survival mechanism. He enrolled in the Royal School of Art and Design in Christiania, now Oslo. His early works already showed something different, something unsettling. While other artists painted romantic landscapes or posed portraits, Munch painted the internal worlds people tried to hide: fear, illness, loneliness, longing. Critics were not impressed. Some called his style ugly, others called it immoral. But Munch didn't care. He believed that art should dig into the human soul, even if it made people uncomfortable. In the 1880s, he began traveling across Europe, meeting artists who encouraged his boldness. In Paris, he soaked up post-impressionism, symbolism, and the work of artists like Gauguin and Toulouse-Lautrec. But Munch wasn't there to imitate anyone. He wanted to paint something deeper, not what the eye sees, but what the heart feels. In 1892, he was invited to exhibit in Berlin. It was a disaster, or rather, the kind of disaster that makes someone famous. The moment the exhibition opened, critics exploded in outrage. They called his paintings a threat to public morals, an insult to art, nightmares masquerading as portraits. The controversy caused the show to close after just 1 week, and of course, nothing makes an artist more interesting than a scandal. The Munch affair made him instantly famous in Germany. His name became synonymous with the avant-garde, the provocative, the emotionally fearless. But it was during this period of creative chaos that something happened, something that would echo through culture for more than 100 years. Munch was walking along a fjord near Christiania at sunset when he felt suddenly overwhelmed by a wave of anxiety, a sensation he later described as a scream passing through nature. The sky was blood red. His friends walked ahead of him. Edvard stopped, trembling. He felt as though the earth itself had opened beneath him. He wrote about the moment in his diary, and from that entry grew a painting that became more than a masterpiece. It became a symbol of modern human anxiety. It became the scream. The pale, twisted figure, the swirling sky, the bridge that leads nowhere. The image is so strange, yet so universal, that people who have never heard of Munch still feel it in their gut. With that painting, Munch didn't just create art. He captured an emotion that modern life would come to know all too well. But his career didn't stop there. He created a series of works called The Frieze of Life, exploring themes of love, anxiety, jealousy, and death. Paintings like The Madonna, The Dance of Life, and The Kiss all carried Munch's signature emotional intensity. He was obsessed with the cycles of human experience, the beauty and the terror, the light and the shadow, always tied together. By the early 1900s, however, Munch's internal world began spiraling. He drank heavily, he often fought with friends and lovers, his mental state teetered on the edge of collapse. In 1908, after a dramatic breakdown, he checked himself into a clinic in Copenhagen. There, with the help of therapy, rest, and a break from the chaos of the art world, he slowly rebuilt himself. When he emerged, he changed. Calmer, more reflective, but still deeply connected to the emotional truth that had always driven him. In his later years, Munch returned to Norway and settled on a farm in Ekeli, just outside Oslo. There, surrounded by nature, he continued to paint, not the torment of youth anymore, but landscapes, workers, people he knew well. His style mellowed, but his essence remained. A man painting the world as he felt it, not as it looked. When the Nazis occupied Norway during World War II, they labeled his art degenerate, like that of so many forward-thinking European artists. But Munch refused to be intimidated. He kept painting, quietly resisting through creativity. He died in 1944, at the age of 80, leaving behind over 1,000 paintings, thousands of drawings, and a legacy that shaped modern expressionism. When he passed, he willed most of his life's work to the city of Oslo, a gift so massive that it led to the creation of the Munch Museum, dedicated entirely to his art and life. Today, the Scream is arguably one of the most recognizable images on Earth, reproduced on t-shirts, emoji, posters, memes, and cultural references everywhere. But behind that pop culture icon is a man who carried lifelong scars, who knew the weight of grief, and who transformed personal pain into universal truth. Munch stripped away the polite masks people wear and painted the raw nerves underneath. His life reminds us that art isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's a cry, a confession, or a confrontation. And sometimes, if the artist is brave enough, that cry becomes the voice of a whole era. Edvard Munch was that kind of artist. A man who stood on a bridge one evening and felt the world tremble inside him. And from that trembling, he created something timeless, not just a painting, but a scream the world still hears.